Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of World's Finest, brought to you by the Comic Collectors Guild. With you, as always, I'm your host. You guys know me as the Superman. My name is Jake, and joining me always, my co-host, the Batman himself, Lee Lawson. Lee, how are you, sir?
I am doing great, Jake. This is a great day, a fantastic show. I'm excited to introduce. We have someone here with us today. We have Jeffrey Grant, the Senior VP of Research at Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. Jeffrey, thank you very much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And, Jeffrey's a fellow member here at the Comic Collectors Guild, so we're always very honored to have fellow members online on here. We're talking with us. To get started, I guess, let's just go right to it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and as far as how you got into comic and collectibles as a kid?
Sure. So I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and I guess my earliest memory is finding out about reruns of the Batman '66 show that they ran on Channel 5 after school. But looking at my collection, I actually can track back some of the original issues that I still have to this day, back to around 1974. So there were a few things that I think that happened that kind of led me to where I am today with my collection. The first of which was my family, my mom and dad. First of all, my comics for a while sat in a trunk in my basement, and you hear all kinds of horror stories that people's mom and dad threw their collection out. Well, that never happened to me. So like I said, I still have some of the original issues that I bought when I was a little kid, or my parents bought me. The second is my grandparents, my grandfather in particular, on two fronts. Number one, there was a guy down the street from my grandparents. His name was Sam Boltanski. And I think before Diamond Comic Distributors came about, and by the way, I'm from Baltimore, the same as Steve Jeppy.
There you go.
So I actually, as a kid, used to go to Jeppy's comic store at Harbor Place and buy stuff there. But before there was the big distribution organization, there were smaller places that would distribute comics and magazines to drugstores and things like that around the area. So Sam Boltanski had one of those places, and my grandfather would take me, my sister, and my two cousins to Sam's warehouse. And Sam would just say, go get whatever it is that you want to get. And actually, interesting enough, while I'm sitting here, so I would go and fill up boxes, or at least a huge box of comics, and he would just take whatever you want. Had to be very careful though, because in addition to comic books, he also distributed dirty books.
Oh, jeez.
So the kids couldn't go in that area. So yeah, we would collect up books, and I will show you one of the original books that I got from that kind of, smorgasbord. Was this
book? Yes.
Is that the first appearance of Wolvie right there?
Yeah, so I've had this in my collection for as long as, this was in the warehouse, and I've actually kept it, oddly enough, in really great condition, which is shocking to me, because this is one of those books that ended up in the steamer trunk.
Oh my gosh.
That is incredible.
All lying flat on top of each other for a while, just kind of in a pile. But then the other thing is that my grandparents would go down to Florida, and they would take with them, I would have a list, because I was, even back then, collecting back issues of the Justice League of America, the original run, and I also collected Marvel Team Up. And I have everything still in the two long boxes over to my left. But they would go with a checklist. And there was a store down there that sold comics, and they went to, and they would go and sometimes bring me back an issue or two or four. It would, increase my collection over time. So yeah, so really, I would say I can track back at least to fourth grade when I started collecting the full run of Marvel Team Up, at least, and I was collecting JLA since before then.
Oh wow!
Kind of snowballed from there, and I think I probably took a bit of time off in late high school and then through college, and probably picked it up again after my kids were born. Dabbled
Wow.
there, but there was a lot of stuff I didn't really keep.
Did your kids pick up your love of comics did they kind of like take the baton from you and continue to run with it, or?
Yeah, they enjoy comics. I say that video games are probably their bigger thing. Anime,
Right.
stuff like that. They actually are just the two of them just now graduating from college. So.
Oh, sweet. Well,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It does my heart well. A comment on what you said, watching Batman 66 on Fox 5. I grew up in not too far from outside of DC, Culpeper, Virginia. So it does my heart well, Jeffrey, to know that you and I were probably watching the same episodes of Batman.
Probably so. So I could actually get WDCA Channel 20, and they had their Captain 20, who was kind of a
Oh yeah, the creature feature also.
creature, right?
Yes.
Captain Ball was the
Yeah.
guy. It was the same dude who played all the characters throughout the entire day.
Oh man, we could talk about this forever. I know exactly
sure.
what you're talking about, Jeffrey. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're like the Beltway boys. I was born in Rockville and grew up, that side of DC as well. And I watched Batman 66, but it was like reruns from my dad. Dad liked Space Ghost Coast to Coast, so didn't get a chance to see it live, but it's a great show. I love that stuff.
I got to ask you, did you mention the comic book store that used to be at Baltimore Harbor a little bit ago? Is that something that you mentioned?
That was one of Steve Geppe's store, and
yes,
stores he had there. And actually, up until recently, he also had a pop culture museum that was right outside of Camden Yards, where the Orioles played. And if you didn't have a chance to go there, that was something to behold. Oh my God! And I think since then he's donated, I think, the lion's share of his collection, I think, to the Library of Congress.
Oh,
wow.
But he had everything in that place. His comic collection, movie posters, like all kinds of memorabilia. It was really an unbelievable thing. And then I think in the past couple of years, they just shut it down.
Oh man, I would have loved to have been able to check that out. It sounds awesome. But I definitely recall the store at Baltimore Harbor that you mentioned. So
yeah, there's a place outside of Baltimore in Reisterstown called Cards, Comics, and Collectibles that I go to when I go visit my folks. And I live just outside of Atlanta right now. And there's a place in Tucker, Georgia that I go to that is really great as well, Infinite Realities.
Oh, well, if we're ever down there, I'll check it out for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure.
Now,
But comics have in some way always been kind of a part of my life. And I've been fortunate because of what I have done. And I've been with the company now for 24 years. I had a chance to work with DC Comics, especially when they were in New York, because I've only been in Atlanta since 2010. And one of the prized possessions that I actually still have in my office over there is a spinner rack that I got from David McKillips when he was head of marketing promotions over there. He now runs Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh wow!
He shipped me a comic spinner rack over that was sitting in DC just untouched. So I was like, "Can I have it?" Sure.
Bring back memories, man. Growing up, and I loved going there and spinning around that comic rack and seeing which issues you could find. I mean, that's something that you don't even see anymore at all. That's really cool that you have that as part of your collection.
Awesome.
So you had mentioned earlier what got you into the collection was the giant size X-Men. Is that I think I happened to see that come across on one of the things that you had shot, one of the pictures you shared with us on Instagram. With
it wasn't giant size. It was number 94. That was the first
okay.
I got. That was the first big investment, and my dad makes an issue of it even to this day. And we're talking, I probably bought this copy in the early 80s.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. This was $60.
Oh wow.
Back then. And to this day, he gives me a hard time that you spent $60 on a comic book.
Worth it.
But I now have the run all the way through, I think about 165. And subsequently, I did get a copy of Giant Size X-Men 1.
Ah, yes. Now that's the first appearance of the new X-Men, right? Like,
That's correct.
yeah, Wolverine, Storm, and all of those guys.
Right.
Nightcrawler, Colossus, the introduction of them. That's fantastic. I actually had just referenced that in one of our other shows, and then I happened to go through the group chat and I saw that sticking there, and I was like, what a fantastic purchase, or that you have that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't realize it until somebody pointed out to me kind of later on, is that I'm kind of a sucker for team books.
Right.
I kind of was rooted in the fact that I started collecting Justice League of America back when I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only actually able to finish the collection out recently with Brave and the Bold 28.
That's awesome. So that's perfect segue into this next thing. As you had mentioned, team books. I'm a huge fan of team ups as well. Team ups, team books, all of that. You brought up Brave and the Bold 28. That's the first appearance, if I'm not mistaken, of the Justice League, as you just mentioned. What a fantastic thing to be able to have in your possession. That's awesome. So is that a Record acquisition? A recent acquisition there?
That's a fairly recent acquisition, and it rounded out the entire thing. So, this is the first appearance of the Justice League of America and Snapper Carr.
Yeah.
Starro the Conqueror.
Yeah.
And so this added to the fact that I had numbers 29 and 30. So it's the whole Brave and the Bold trilogy for the Justice League. And then a while ago, I actually used to go to San Diego for Comic-Con. I picked up, while I was there, the first issue of Justice League of America.
Oh my gosh.
Despero with the classic chess set cover.
There you go.
Yes.
So when you think of the Justice League, even today, are those characters that were in the JLA still what you picture in your head when you think of the Justice League?
Well, I think you mentioned to me the satellite years.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, that was pretty much where they were. So it was post Happy Harbor. Snapper Carr was gone. He had betrayed the league already. And even at that point, the Martian Manhunter was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I was familiar with him because I had some of the back issues, but it wasn't. He wasn't part of my league. I suppose, of like the current issues that I was buying at the time.
Right.
So it was kind of cool that they ended up bringing him back.
They did. No, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm a huge fan of the satellite era, and that is my Justice League as well. Elongated Man, Hawkman, Zatanna, all of those guys. Of course, with the main 7, or not really 7 because John Jones isn't there, but the rest of them are. So yeah, I love that same era.
Yeah, I'm glad that the Detroit era happened while I was in college. Because that would not have been something that I was totally into. To me, if you read the Justice League in any form, you need to have some of the key characters that are in there. To have it be anything else doesn't really make it the Justice League. I think probably a small exception was the Giffen McGuire run.
Justice League International,
which I think was a whole other departure for it that they made really entertaining.
Is that the Justice League International that you're referring to, or just Justice League?
Well, it was Justice League for a handful of issues, and then it turned into Justice League International. Right?
Yes, no, that definitely took more of a comedic slant. To your point,
yes. And you have to appreciate it for what it is. I actually ran into J.M. DeMatteis at Dragon Con last year, I guess.
Yeah.
His son actually works for Adult Swim. And he definitely gave me the hookup. And I got him, McGuire, and Giffen, all 3 of them, to sign my copy of Justice League #1.
Oh, that is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Dragon Con, something I definitely have circled on my calendar of an event that I really want to go to. I've heard so many great things from cosplay players as well as other members, just how awesome Dragon Con is. And it's kind of, besides like New York City Comic Con or San Diego, that seems to be like the one Comic Con I keep hearing over and over again, like, you got to check that event out. It's a fantastic one.
Yeah, it prides itself on, there's a part of it that I've never attended, and that is the stuff that happens late at night. I kind of go in with a laser focus with an agenda of things that I want to.
I got you.
I go in and I've presented there a couple of times, and that's been really fun. But the crowds are unbelievable, and how they're able to juggle everybody between, I guess it's like 4 hotels. During the day, it's bananas.
That is
How they're going to do it this year with everything that's going on, I don't know. But that's a tremendous amount of people, because it's Labor Day weekend and there's like 5 or 6 other events going on in Atlanta simultaneously. So this is all downtown and just a ton of craziness. But people, there are people that I know, friends of mine, who even people that actually live here in Atlanta will stake out hotel rooms for the week and just basically hang there and party day and night.
There you go. As if Atlanta traffic isn't bad enough, let's just bring a whole bunch more people in. But one thing I know you touched on is, you need to have these staple characters within the Justice League. One of the biggest ones of them all is obviously Batman. I know that you have mentioned that you're a big collector of Batman, especially like his villains, as well as Batgirl, which I really appreciate, I'm a big Batgirl fan as well. Can you talk a little bit about, some of maybe the villains that specifically that you like to focus on, as well as some of the Batgirl comics?
Sure. We'll start with the villains. So, I see my collection as being very fluid, and for reasons I don't really know, sometimes I'll just like latch on. I have a couple of issues of this, and they have this person and that person in it. So then that leads me to go and find other issues that are related. And that's kind of how this sort of came about, I guess. As I just started to pull in, back issues of Detective, especially, and Batman, I decided that, one of the things that kind of would be cool, because there are a lot of people that think very linearly when they collect comics, like I'm going to read Superman and it's going to run from, this issue to that issue. I kind of changed that thought and decided that I was going to go and do a grouping of first appearances or first Silver Age appearances of specific characters and have that be my collection. Or in the case of Batgirl or the Silver Surfer or the Punisher, find the first 20 appearances of that character, and it's not necessarily in a linear series that goes goes on. But from the Batman standpoint, it led me to pick up. So here's the first appearance of Mr. Zero.
Fantastic.
So that's a fun one. That was hard to find, and hard to find actually even at a 5.5.
And now, Mr. Zero, real quick, he eventually that was Mr. Freeze, right? And then
by his second appearance, which I also have.
Okay.
And I've been collecting not only first but second appearances now to follow up on some of these characters. But the Silver Age, first Silver Age appearance of Catwoman. The first Silver Age Riddler.
That is incredible. I love it. That's incredible.
This is a nice one. This is the first Silver Age Penguin.
Oh, wow. Old Oswald Cobblepot making an appearance there.
Yep. And let's see. So for some of the bigger names, there's Clayface. That's the first Silver Age. Silver Age Mad Hatter.
Wow.
Arthur Tesh. Nice.
Yeah, Jervis Tetch, and also the Scarecrow. That's a popular one.
I love that cover. That is fantastic.
That's kind of a classic. But then also, I wanted like some of the smaller characters too, because they're kind of fun. So there's like Dr. Death and Dr. 00 and like Hangman and all that kind of crazy stuff. But I couldn't pass up Polka Dot Man.
Oh, of course not.
Because he's coming up actually in the
Suicide Squad.
Yep.
And so I found this one for the first appearance of the Calendar Man.
Oh, nice.
it's funny looking at these, how it seems like half the characters, their look has pretty much, for the most part, been modernized a little bit, but still looks the same. And the other half, completely different.
Yep. Were these all things that you came across in Comic-Cons, or are there any ones that you just kind of popped across at some comic book shop, or maybe an old bookstore that no one was aware of what they had in their midst, and you were like, wow, what a treasure?
I can't say that I've ever been that lucky, other than with the story about the Incredible Hulk 181.
Hulk 81,
yeah. That's about as lucky as I've ever really gotten. But the stuff that I've purchased, it kind of runs the gamut between cons and stores. And
nice.
There are a couple of places online that I purchase from as well that I trust as far as the quality of so.
That's awesome. So as far as the Batman wise, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. A lot of people pick Joker, obviously. Do you have a favorite Batman rogue throughout the years that you've always liked reading or following up on?
Wow.
I know it's there's a lot of them.
That is a tough one. Well, I guess from the Batman family, it's not so much the rogues that I follow or the villains that I necessarily follow. To me, like you said, I've also I've been a big Batgirl fan.
Yeah.
Just with kind of tracking that whole history through the years. And I've started to collect going all the way back to Betty Kane, the original Batgirl, and then how that unfolded into Barbara Gordon and then the other iterations moving forward. And I've tried to keep track of first appearances and transitions into other people. So that's been kind of fun. So when and they've done a lot of really cool and interesting stuff, especially now that they've kind of brought Batgirl more into the fore these days. I'll confess, I don't really read an awful lot of new stuff. I'm probably really more focused on Silver and Bronze Age stuff.
Nothing wrong with that.
So you weren't really running out and getting the Batgirl by Burnside, Batgirl and Burnside.
No, but I'm familiar with it, and I see the value in it. Like on the chat there, they have that the Wolverine issue that just came out with the yellow cover.
Yeah,
and how everybody was scrambling to buy that. That may be really great. I personally it doesn't float my boat. I would much rather go for something like this.
There you go. I remember that.
I've had this in my collection for a while, and this is the original first appearance of the.
Wow! Look at that.
Old Betty Kane. So this might be a no-brainer. I think I know the answer to the question. I think we probably both do. But out of all being a Batgirl fan, then I would imagine, do you have the favorite iteration of that character?
By all means, it's the Barbara Gordon Bat.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably anchored in the fact that, again, I watched the Batman TV show as a kid. I'm actually looking at my signed Batman poster here, and I have Yvonne Craig. Her signature is one of the batch of them on there.
Wow.
So yeah, awesome. I would say, and I probably have the most Barbara Gordon oriented stuff, even all the way through Oracle. And in fact, the other thing that I also have been collecting recently are foreign language copies of The Killing Joke.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, so just recently I got a copy in Russian and Polish and Portuguese. And I have copies also in Japanese, German, Spanish, Italian, and I'm probably forgetting something else in there. I tried to get one in Hebrew, but as it turns out, there was a comic store in Tel Aviv that won the best comic store in the world at Comic-Con in San Diego one year when I was there. And for whatever reason, I just never forgot that. My mother and sister went. They were in Tel Aviv. I was like, you have to go to this place for me and see if you can pick up a Hebrew language Killing Joke. Yeah. But they went there, found the place, and asked for it. But apparently, I guess for American comics, the preference is to read them in English in Israel. So there are no Hebrew language version of it in the store, but they had other Hebrew language.
Bummer.
Yeah.
kid-oriented stuff.
And all the English versions you wanted, huh? No problem. So I want to quickly, if you don't mind, circle back around to the team up and to the team books, because I would imagine, we just kind of touched on it a little bit. And we spent a lot of time on the Justice League, but being a fan of the team books, do you have any others that are near and dear to your heart?
Yes, I do.
All right.
So there's a bunch. So there, I started a little while back focusing on the Defenders, because I always thought that team was a real weird combination of people in it.
That it is.
Yeah, almost unexplainable. These are 3, 4, or 5 people that just honestly should never go together.
Right.
They do, and it just makes for a weird combination. So here's the first issue of Marvel Feature with the first official appearance of the Defenders.
Awesome.
Got into it. The thing that was interesting to me is that actually the Defenders didn't really start in this book. That in fact, there was a trilogy, a story that was written across the Incredible Hulk, Doctor Strange, and the Submariner a few years prior. And something happened where one of the books was being canceled, and I think they were canceling Doctor Strange or something like that. And it diverted how the story was being told. So it's those 3 issues that started out kind of bringing the 3 of them together, the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and the Submariner. And then I think about a year later, there was a 2-part story in Submariner that brought the Hulk, Submariner, and the Silver Surfer together, the Avengers. So I found and picked up all of those. Plus, there's been issues here and there. I've never seen a group of people that work together hate each other so much. There's so many issues where, individually or in chunks, they're all just beating the mess out of each other. So like, there's a Tales to Astonish 100, where the Hulk and Submariner go at it. I picked that up. There in just various issues like that are around. I think it's funny. But
yeah. So
that's the Defenders, and then I got. You were asking me whether I got lucky picking something up. I guess this probably would qualify. So before the advent of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when all the stuff, all the movies started to come down the pike, I had my eye on a copy of a comic that I felt that I had to get, just because, again, it was a team book, and you want to see all these characters all in one place. So I ended up picking up a copy of the first issue of the Avengers. Probably if I had to do it again today and pick the same copy up, there's no way that in the world that I'd be able to do it now that, the Avengers movies have just become the
oh my gosh
in the world. So I've been very lucky and fortunate to have a copy of this in my collection. I've got I've got a bunch of other significant Avengers books. I had at Dragon Con again last year, Roy Thomas signed I think the first Ultron book. There's another one he signed where it was the first appearance of the Valkyrie, but I don't think that she was really the Valkyrie until anyway, he wrote that. He also signed my my Iron Fist books as well. He was super nice.
That's fantastic.
On the DC side, I've also been a bit of a fan of the Teen Titans. So a long time ago, I did pick up a copy of Brave and Bold.
I love it.
Kind of debated me on this before, because even though you've got the 3 of them in issue 54, they're not called the Teen Titans, I don't think, until they appear together in either Brave and the Bold or Showcase.
I think it's Brave and the Bold 60, if I'm not mistaken.
You're speaking Lee's language right now. He's a big Titans guy.
But, you can say what you want, whether these were officially the Teen Titans back then or not. I mean, it's the Teen Titans.
Yeah, it is. I'll go with you,
Exactly.
Jeffrey. I'm with you on that one.
And then I think most recently, the path that I'm kind of taking now that I've kind of struck up an interest in is, and probably have done so more so since I've seen the TV show,
Mhm.
is the Doom Patrol. So here's
Awesome.
My Greatest Adventure number 80, which is the first appearance, the origin and first appearance of the Doom Patrol. And
Mhm.
just recently, along with that, I picked up a couple of other copies of, so here's the origin of Beast Boy.
Okay. I
That's
love it.
And this is where Elastigirl marries Mento. And I wanted to pick this up because, as you can see down here, it's a crossover between them and the Justice League of America.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I see. Is that Flash and Batman there?
There's
That's
Flash
great.
and Batman. So this was interesting to me in the same way that Mystery in Space, I think it's 75, was interesting. So it was a crossover with Adam Strange.
Awesome.
That's
I have a
great.
question about the Titans, and actually about Justice League too. Those are the first appearances of those teams ever. Do you have, when they've restarted at the starting points, do you also have those number ones? You know what I mean? When they went from Justice League of America, to your point, even though they segued into a path that you and I are not a fan of, Detroit Justice League, and those different types of Justice Leagues the Justice League Europe, Justice League International, those things.
Yeah,
Do you have
so,
those?
well, I have the complete run of Justice League of America, so that goes clear through
Oh,
run. So I've got all the way through the end. I've got the 3 annuals. I've got the Mystery in Space. And so I also have, so when I was doing stuff with DC and had friends that were still there, one of the things that they did for me was put me on, probably shouldn't say this, they put me on the DC comp box list. So for a few years, every month, I would get the box to my house that had every comic, hardback, soft cover that DC would put out in a given month. It was so much that I couldn't keep it all. And there was stuff that I probably should have kept but didn't. But I have my own personal taste. There's probably a lot of Vertigo stuff in there I probably should have kept but didn't. So that was in the early 2000s, I want to say, probably around is when I was getting the box. So from that, I collected the entire run of the Howard Porter JLA when it started with Howard Porter.
yeah.
And was that Grant Morrison? I think it was Grant
It
Morrison.
was Morrison.
Yeah, it was.
That was the 90s run there, yeah.
Right. So it was introduced with the there was a 3-issue storyline. I can't remember now what it was called, and then it broke into JLA. So I've got that whole run, and I've got like various and sundry, JLA classified, JLA this, JLA that from that whole run, and from the Giffen McGuire run. I've got not a lot of issues, but like I said, I got the first issue signed by all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And as far as Teen Titans goes, I have some other series where they've been grouped and regrouped. I've got a bunch of Young Justice. I spoke at Phoenix Comic-Con with a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, a few years ago, and kind of as a parting gift, the people there at Phoenix Comic-Con who organized my speaking engagement actually got me a copy of New Teen Titans #1, signed by Marv Wolfman and George Perez.
Oh man.
That was really nice. So
Yeah.
I've got a few things that are actually signed by George and Marv as well. Crisis on Infinite Earth. Yeah.
This guy's got it all,
So
man.
the face of envy right here. The face of
I
envy.
know, right?
But yeah, well, I have a bunch of other signed stuff. I don't. That's been another kind of big debate from people that I've kind of interacted with online about my collection, because I'll get celebrities or whoever to sign an associated book, and so I got one person who said to me, "Well, that's like getting Andrew Garfield to sign Amazing Fantasy 15.
Right.
Well, I don't think so, because I'm not getting anything quite that significant signed. For me, it makes for a fun, unique piece.
Absolutely.
And I enjoy it, and that's all that matters. I can show you some of it if you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. By all means, please.
Please.
All right. So at the same Phoenix Comic-Con, I got Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man, to sign my copy of
I love
This
that
is
show.
the same issue that I have had since 1975. This is one of those issues that sat in the trunk. And for whatever reason, it kept in great shape.
I'm glad, because if there's one thing that could take Wolverine and the $6 Million Man out, would be a hot trunk. So I am so happy
Absolutely.
that they survived.
So we have Incredible Hulk number 102, signed by Lou Ferrigno.
That is spectacular.
Sweet.
I've heard he's a very nice guy too.
He was very nice, and he was obviously very knowledgeable, because when I brought this up to him at Dragon Con, he stopped and looked at the person who was managing. He's like, "This is a significant issue."
That is great.
So that didn't help me.
Right.
Let's see. All right, this is something near and dear to my heart, because I'm a huge fan. If I'm not, being a fan of comics, I am a fan of the Monkees. And this is a copy of Monkees number 1, signed by Michael Nesmith. And I very much forward to the fact that they get back on tour, which I have tickets for Nashville next. They've moved the show till April of next year. So hopefully we're past all of this COVID stuff. And then there's a bunch of like CW, I guess, oriented signatures that I have. So I would say this is probably one of the more significant books that I did get signed. But I got Matt Ryan to sign Swamp Thing 37, which is the first appearance of John Constantine.
Yeah.
In Constantine and also in Legends of Tomorrow.
That is awesome.
I got at Comic-Con in San Diego at an event for Warner Brothers, actually, the main cast of the first season of Supergirl to sign The Adventures of Supergirl number 1. So this is Melissa Benoist and Kyler Lay and David Harewood and Mehcad Brooks, who played Olsen.
Yeah.
And let's see, probably at the same Comic-Con, or maybe one later, I got Cress Williams, who plays Black Lightning.
Black Lightning.
Issue of Black Lightning.
That's so cool. That's is really cool, man.
I got Zachary Levi to sign my copy of Shazam.
Wow. He is awesome.
He's a great guy, right?
He was very nice. He's very zen. If you ever listen to him on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, the two of them go really deep in their philosophical beliefs. It was one of the better podcast episodes that I think I've ever heard. But a heavy dude, a nice guy, and honestly, if I had the chance, I would get Jackson Bostwick to sign this from the original Shazam team.
Oh yeah.
When I was a kid. Yeah. And then another one that I got was Donal Logue from Gotham.
Oh yeah, Bullock.
This is one of those issues where there's some debate as to what actually is the first appearance of a character. I believe it was Walt. No, I'm trying to think who it was that I tried to go in and look at the story. There's like a panel or two where I think it's like a Detective Bullock appears, and Donal Logue played Harvey Bullock on Gotham. But I guess there is another issue of either Detective or Batman much later on where there's an actual character named Harvey Bullock, and the person who created that character claims to never have seen the reference in this book. but I think the creative credit for Harvey Bullock goes to the person who wrote the story in this one. So,
Okay.
interestingly, Donald Logue had never seen this book in the entire run of Gotham, and so when I brought it over to him, he asked me what it was, and I told him, and he actually started taking his phone out and taking pictures of the book. And he's like, "Show me where Harvey Bullock appeared for the first time." So I had to like flip through the book and like show him where it was. It's kind of cool to be the guy that actually showed.
That is awesome.
Where his first appearance was.
Yeah, man, what a cool thing. Awesome being able to meet these people and getting signatures and having these experiences. I mean, that's such a great thing to be able to do. You took me back. I didn't realize there was a Monkeys comic book even, and I was a huge fan of those, the TV show. I love the show and all of that. And they're still touring. The two of them are still out there, huh?
Yeah, Mike and
Goldens
Mickey, sure.
Yeah, wow, very awesome.
Yeah, Dell did a whole series of books. I don't know if it went to like maybe 16, 25 issues, something like that. And what I've also started to look for are comic covers where there are references to the Monkeys that either have a photo cover or something like that. In fact, so here's an example. If I can look, let's see. Yeah. So here's a copy of Teen Beat. So this is absolutely no relation to the teen magazine Tiger Beat or Teen.
Right.
This was an actual comic book, and just so you can see the relative size.
Yeah.
DC Comics put out in 1966, 67. And I think they changed the name after the first issue. This is the first issue. So I brought this with me and had Mickey sign it after a concert outside of Boston recently. But there's other stuff like this. There's a Josie, I think it's a Josie comic from the Archie series.
Oh yeah, Josie and the Pussycats.
There is another series called Go-Go and Animal. It's really obscure.
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, it's kind of the same ilk as Archie. And there were at least a couple of 2 or 3 Monkeys covers that I'm trying to track down. It's hard to find any of them in any good condition. But I would love to have it to kind of round out my Monkeys collection.
Absolutely.
Real quick, I want to go back to the $6 Million Man one also, because you were just going through my childhood a little bit there as you as you were lifting those up. Because like I said, I don't know if you heard me, I was a huge fan of Steve Austin and Jamie Summers even after that. But I don't know if you said it or if I misunderstood it. Did you say you got that signed when you were a kid growing up, or does that when you were back at another Comic-Con?
Yeah, it was one of the speaking gigs that I did at Phoenix Comic-Con.
Okay.
He was there, and I do have a copy of Bond Woman number 1 around here, but was not able. I didn't have it at the time and wasn't able to get it signed by Lindsay Wagner, unfortunately. But there is a picture of Lee Majors, Lindsay Wagner, me, and my friend at the Comic-Con.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, my friend Brad. So I actually got the picture booked as a surprise to him. So that was kind of fun. Like you said,
that's very cool.
Childhood coming back.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, you mentioned Comic-Con, a couple of different Comic-Cons. Do you have a favorite that that you've been to that sticks out above the rest that you really enjoy going to?
Well, I feel very fortunate that I was able to go to San Diego Comic-Con for as many years as I did. I haven't been in a few years, but I was able to do it for work. And I would say, pretty much every time I went, it was work all day. There was time for some fun at night, but just the amount of people and the people watching, and I would say the convention floor is just it just can't be beat. First went there. I remember walking in. I don't know if it was Hall H or where it was. But I went to the very first Adult Swim panel, And, it was at a time where you didn't have to, as far as I remember, you didn't have to sit outside overnight to get into the hall.
Mhm.
And I remember doing that for Adult Swim, and also walking in to see the Smallville panel that they had there. That's how far long this goes back. There was a Simpsons panel, but it's like, in recent years, there's no way you could do that without having to sit in the line overnight.
Yeah.
I would
Right.
never do. But by and large, the amount of time that I spent there was actually getting people to fill out surveys for about doing on the Adult Swim footprint.
Oh, there you go. Well, worst to worst, I mean, a trip out to San Diego is not too hard of a twist in the arm to go out there any time of the year.
No, and there have been multiple times that I got the con crud there for sure, and it's awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it can be a lot of fun, especially if you have access to go do and see things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the thing that I think probably saddens me the most is how over the years there was less and less focus on actual comics, to the point where it was kind of
An afterthought.
confined to a smaller place. And I think it was Mile High Comics that finally bailed out altogether and didn't come back. But locally, depending on how you like navigating the crowds, there's Dragon Con here in Atlanta, and they just announced actually today or yesterday that Atlanta Comic Con is happening at the Georgia World Congress Center at the end of July.
Oh, wow.
Which, how they're going to be able to pull that off
I was going to ask.
is something else.
Yeah, really.
I like that one because that does focus a lot on comics.
There you go. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about the comic character that kind of started it off for everybody, and that's Superman. I know I see some Superman behind you. Could you share maybe a little bit about your Superman collection and what your love from that character started from?
Well, he's the alpha. I mean,
Yep.
there's no arguing. And I think if you're a little kid, he's a role model that you look up to.
Right.
And, it's like I look back to my earliest issues that I actually bought off the rack. And it was Action Comics, it was Detective Comics, and it was The Amazing Spider-Man. I can actually look at my collection and go back, and they're, to use a phrase that people have told me, they are probably the most loved of my collection, in that they are the most tattered and worn. It's a sign of just
The most.
yeah, it's what I was interested in at the time. I think it's the entry point for a lot of little kids. I think
Right.
to get a lot of older people who read comics, more so even than kids do. I think that you're in the drugstore and you're at the spinner rack or at the magazine stand or whatever it was back in 74 or 75. That's what I flocked to. I have a couple issues here of The Flash or, I don't know, Captain America or something like that, but there was those three that were the biggies. So I think probably the most significant issue that I do have is Superman number, try to get the glare out, Superman number 30, which is the first issue, the introduction of Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
Mxyzptlk, or however you say whatever you want to call him, he's in here.
Use that one,
There you
right?
go.
Old
Yes.
Mxyzptlk, yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, the old
So I
F
have-
himself.
Yeah, so I have issue number 30, and I have issue, I want to say it's like 32 or 34, which is that classic lightning bolt cover.
Oh, yeah.
It tickles. I can pull it out right now. That's here.
That is fantastic. That is
Oh,
awesome.
This is the cover that you see on like refrigerator magnets and stuff.
Yeah, that is
Yep.
fantastic. That's
So
good
this was
stuff.
one it has, other than the cover, I don't think it has much significance. And it's just a cover that just pops,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
speaks to the
Grabs
character.
your attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's so awesome, man. Well, we've talked a lot about the hero genre and all, and I would imagine, are there any other collectibles that you have that's outside of the superhero genre that you might like to be able to that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I've taken an interest over the years in Mad magazine. I think, when I was a kid, similar to seeing the Amazing Spider-Man or Detective or Action on the racks, the other thing that I would pull is Mad.
Mhm.
And obviously, by the time I got to it as a kid, it was the magazine that everybody read. But I think, in the magazine or in the bound reprints, I was always struck by Harvey Kurtzman and Wally Wood and the guys that started Mad Magazine, because I think even as a little kid with Mad the way it was, I still was familiar with Starchy and Super Duper Man and all that, all the stuff that parodied a lot of the things back in the 50s. So I started to collect the comic book versions of the original Mad. So I have most of the first 10. I pulled a few here. So here's Mad #1.
That's a really cool looking cover.
Yeah, as a classic Harvey Kurtzman cover.
That art is incredible.
Yeah, it's been parodied a gazillion times.
Well, Jeffrey, help me out. You mentioned Harvey Kurtzman. Did he used to also do EC Comics? Is that where he got his start?
Well, right. So you can actually see before Mad was bought by DC. Is that right?
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's got the EC logo on there.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then they had Tales Calculated to Drive You Mad. And then they came out with #2, and it actually is not a Harvey Kurtzman cover, but it's a Jack Davis cover. And I later found out that Jack actually lived here just outside of Atlanta.
That's awesome.
Mine here who actually collects Jack Davis artwork.
Yeah.
But you just look at the level of detail.
Yeah, that is
It's
crazy.
really unbelievable.
In the background, especially, where like it's not just where your eyes go to, but the details in the background of that cover
Right.
is tremendous.
Right. And so, yeah, here's, let's see, how do I do this? Yeah, here's numbers 3 and 4. Both hard covers.
I love his the way he shadows.
Yeah.
His shadowing is fantastic.
So it was great. It was a thrill for me. One year, actually coming back from Comic-Con in San Diego, I actually ended up in the airport at San Diego with some of my colleagues from DC, and I sat down next to this woman, this older woman, and just struck up a conversation because she was there with everybody else that I was familiar with, and I didn't know who it was. And I said, "Hi, I'm Jeff Grant," and she said that she was, and I forget her first name, but it turns out that it was Harvey Kurtzman's widow.
Wow.
So when she said her last name, Kurtzman, I looked at her and I said, like, Harvey? I just remember her reaction. Yes, he was my husband. Okay, that's all you need to say.
Right.
So that was awesome. And then, over the years, I've collected other items from Mad. One of the things I have actually is I got Sergio Aragonés to do an Alfred E. Newman for me. He also signed one of my Gru the Wanderer. So I would say probably Gru is one of those things that is also probably not on the same plane as a superhero book.
That's
Awesome.
that's
Oh yeah,
crazy.
Gru. Sergio has some fantastic artwork also. I mean, he was just fantastic. I mean, really interesting designs for the people and then all of that. It was just really good stuff. No, this is awesome stuff that you've shared with us today.
Yeah, I guess
I would be remiss if I didn't mention actually this. So I recently got remarried, and my wife as a gift before we got married, knowing that I collected, and she has no idea about anything in the comic industry or keys or, you know, characters. I mean, she watches the movies and all, but is not deeply into the hobby as I am. Actually went on her own and did some digging and backup research and got me a very nice gift in honor of the fact that we were about to get married. So my wife, Jen, bought me a copy of Fantastic Four Annual #3, which was the wedding of Reed and Sue.
Oh, what a fantastic wedding
That's
gift.
when you know she's a keeper right there.
Yes.
She's a keeper.
Oh, man.
So yeah, I saw this. I was just like, I was floored. So that was really cool.
That is sensational.
Yes.
Last question. Thank you so much for taking so much, time out of your schedule.
Sure.
I think, especially someone with a collection like yours, with so many key issues, if you were to give advice for somebody who wanted to get into comic books and collecting, what would be like the one or two things you would just kind of give as an advice for someone who's just getting started into their comic collection?
Well, there's two answers to that, I think. The first is if you're trying to help someone start a collection in something, you can't force someone to collect something that they're not particularly interested in. So if you're a parent that is trying to like encourage your kid, I would say, figure out what it is that they like, even if it's something that you don't understand, because kids like a lot of things that parents just aren't into. And I think that's key. And I think if you understand that, that's what's going to keep that kid interested in what they're collecting as the years go on. I at least had the freedom. I picked it up, and then, my family, as I told you all, kind of nurtured that as the years went on. Look, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm sure that there were points in time where they thought it was weird and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really care, and still don't care to this day, because it's something that I enjoy.
Yeah.
But to someone who is kind of embarking on this on their own, I think you have to figure out why it is you like something in particular and focus on the things that you like. I think it's worthwhile to, especially with comics, I think you need to read around, because there's so many different genres and varieties of different things that are available out there in stores, particularly today. That, whether it's some horror genre or a superhero genre or some sort of indie story that fails to be categorized. I think you really need to figure out what it is that floats your boat. Are you a person who's more into Y: The Last Man or Walking Dead more so than you are into Doctor Strange or The Flash? And you make that determination and you focus on that. As I've kind of gone on, like I said, my collection has kind of taken root where it's like I'll go in one direction and realize that there's some commonalities to some of the books and be like, okay, well, I'm going to go over here now. But yeah, you really kind of just focus on what you like. It's like when I think it's advice that John Cleese gave once about wine, and that if it tastes good to you, fantastic. And I think that is as true with the hobby.
Yeah, that's a fantastic analogy. And before we, I think we'd pick your brain for probably the rest of the week if time let us, but we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for showing off your collection and speaking with us. You're welcome anytime on the show. We'd love to see more in future episodes. But thank you so much for coming on with us.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it, Jeff. It's stuff you've shown. It's taken me back a lot. You know what I mean? The stuff that we've spoken about. It's just fantastic. I've never been so envious, as well as having a good time, all at the same time. Yeah. Full of mixed emotions here. But no, it's been great.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're at it, guys, please check out our website, www.comiccollectorsguild.com. We're also available on Spotify as well as Google Podcasts. If you'd like to be featured on the show as well, show off your collection, you are welcome anytime. Lee, appreciate you as always. And until next time, keep hunting, guys.
Hi, this is Will Friedle, the voice of Terry McGinnis on Batman Beyond. And I want to welcome everyone to the Comic Collectors Guild. And whether you're a comic lover, collector, or fan, you can visit them at comiccollectorsguild.com. Remember to always keep hunting.